This is the One Shot Growth Podcast. No fluff, real business. Hosted by Daniel Radabaugh and Derek Boyd, where business, mindset, and real life collide through real conversations, real experiences, and figuring it out together. If you're building, learning, and figuring it out too, you're in the right place.
Well, welcome back to One Shot Growth Podcast, y'all. Appreciate you joining us again. We're out here at the I-20 Wildlife Preserve, doing it like we usually do. Just figure we get out, get the fresh air, stretch the legs a little bit, and see what we could get into on conversation today. Derek and I on the way over here, we're kind of talking through our journey, and I think one of the big things that we realized is, with as many ups and downs as we've had in our business and in our lives, if we would have stopped, kind of held up in the moment, right, it would have destroyed us. We never would have saw this thing off. So it's been kind of the story of our lives, right? I got out of the service, man, and when I got out, I didn't have anything. I had a job lined up, but I didn't have a group of friends. I didn't have, family that was close to where I was moving to, and it was scary, man. And it was just one of those, the military was my entire life. And when I got out, I kind of lost sight of who I was for a while, but I was able to push through. I was able to kind of regather and, find that motivation, find that drive to move on to the next level. Sorry, there is a very angry hawk whistling at us. That is a pissed off hawk.
He wants in on the show too.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we'll kind of talk around that today, right? You're in a business mindset, trying to get your business off the ground, trying to scale, and all of a sudden you lose a big contract. What do? Do you buckle down, get pissed off, give up, let it change your mentality and the way you're thinking? Or do you put forth that extra effort, figure out how to overcome that, and keep driving on?
Well, what you're saying about the identity piece, it's a struggle for every human being, right? Whether it's a transition from one season to the next, whether that's personally, professionally, we all go through these changes, and that identity piece is not always easy to navigate, especially when you are transitioning into a new season and outgrowing spaces and moving into new spaces. And you mentioned coming out of the service, and that was its own very unique transition, and trying to figure out what does life look like on the other side of that. But then also transitioning through seasons of career growth inside of oil and gas industry for you and I over the last 15, 20 years has another layer of complexity and growth, and seasons come and go. And then stepping into the entrepreneurship world, it's probably magnified even more so in a lot of ways, just because I think most entrepreneurs would agree there's not always a big group of people around you that get it, that see your vision, that understand what you're trying to do. Hopefully there's some support there. We all need it, but especially in the early stages, to get to the other side, it can be a lonely process. And the identity part of going from the old you to the new you and keeping the foot on the pedal to keep showing up when it's not working, We talked about how easy is it to look back to the old self, and when it's not quite working just yet, to just say, well, maybe I jump back to, maybe I've got to accept that I got to go back to who I was, and that this new version of myself isn't meant to be.
Well, I mean, even take it back further, man, just during our time in the service, you know, I was 18 when I went in, and straight out of high school, young kid. I was still a punk, you know, just graduated, got in the service, and next thing you know, you find yourself stepping off C-130 in Kuwait, and your whole life changed instantly at that moment. You know, you had to grow up, you had to deal with new things, see things, new levels of stress that you'd never dealt with in your entire life. And you didn't have a choice, right? You had to change. You couldn't sit there and say, I'm not doing this. I'm done. I give up. And I think for you and me, that's always been a big part of our lives, is being able to say, man, we did things that were a whole lot harder than this shit. No matter how bad business is, no matter how bad things get, there's always something worse. And we could always be in a position where there is no tomorrow. And being able to look at life from that lens, you know.
Yeah, it's really interesting to sit inside of that space for a little bit, and you transition out, start building a career, start getting into this long-term game, right, of who am I, what am I trying to be. You got bills, you got hopes, dreams that cost money to materialize. You look up one day, times do get tough, things become very challenging, but in the grand scheme of things, comparatively to what we've gone through ourselves and what other people go through that we haven't had to go through, it's a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. I think it's become very easy for us to take for granted how good we have it sometimes. And usually these reminders come in the form of drastic humility. It kind of reminds you, you know, as bad as this feels and as hard as it is right now, this spot that we're going through, we are far from being able to say that we're in a position that is not beatable, and it could be way worse. There's a lot of people who have it a lot harder than we do and have to navigate challenges that we could never even fathom. So yes, these times bring challenges where it feels like the weight of it is so big and so heavy to carry. But like you said, is this an arena we get to play in because we choose to, or is this something we have no choice? And really makes looking at those decisions a lot easier to process when you think about it in the big picture. Like, we choose to be in this space, we choose to engage in our pursuits of our growth, and bad days are not really so bad after you think about how good we really have it at the end of the day.
You brought up the arena, right? I think one of the biggest struggles that you and I have had is that imposter syndrome, right? We know that we're onto something. We're getting feedback from everybody that what we're doing is being received extremely well. But when we struggle and we have our ups and downs and something doesn't go our way, we look at it and go, what's that? We look at it and go, is what we're doing right? Does it make sense? Are we the right people to do this? And we have to constantly remind ourselves that, hey, we may not have the same experience. We may have lived different lives. For us, both veterans, both have been out in the field, spent our time growing up through the industry. We've got different thoughts and processes around how things should go. And not everybody thinks of things in the same way we do. But we can't give up because of that. The whole reason we started OSG Access, man, was because of that exactly. Right? We're trying to open a community where no matter what your thoughts or beliefs, your struggles, whether you're making millions or struggling to pay your next week's rent, we want a place where people can really talk through all this together and give advice and learn from one another, because my experience may not work for your current situation and yours might not work for mine, But the last thing we want anybody to do is give up.
Well, and the community piece is the most vital part of navigating that journey, because there's so many people that are going through different phases, different seasons of life. And talking about that imposter syndrome, it's really easy to get in your own head about, do I look like what I envisioned this to look like? And am I presenting myself in the way that I think this is supposed to go? There's a lot of releasing a lot of that expectation, I think, that is helpful to keep showing up in a space where you can learn to navigate without getting lost in the idea of what you think you're supposed to look and feel like. And without the community piece, man, it's challenging inside this industry specifically, because for one, there's not a lot of appreciation and praise that's regularly doled out, right? And so it's hard to be in a place of not getting that a lot, but having the drive to push and move up. And then it doesn't always come at the time frame and the speed or the current opportunity that you're in. And it's super easy to look backwards at that point to your past and say, well, I'm not able to get to the other side right now. I'm just going to look at the reality that I may have to just go back to where I came from. And I don't think many people will have success in overcoming that like they would unless they're in a community where there's support from all different walks, like you said, different levels of life, different seasons, and people that are overall just committed to growing, period. No matter what stage you're in. We've all been in that spot where we've had the highest highs and the lowest lows, and we all just need support. We need support when we're doing great. We need more support when we're not doing good at all.
We had a client this week, I had a conversation with them, and I got a message saying, hey, I need to talk to you. So I reached out and had a conversation the next morning, and first thing off the bat was, man, I'm gonna have to shut it all down. Finances and struggles and things taking too long, and receiving feedback from his clients, and he got in his head, right? The conversation started off very rough, but we were able to sit there and talk about it and say, look, I can help you here. You're utilizing our operating system. You're starting to get your feet off the ground. Your marketing's starting to pick up. You're starting to get your brand awareness out there. but it's not something that you're going to snap your fingers and happen tomorrow. You've got to stick with the process, right? Be methodical in what you're doing, continue to reach out, and don't give up. And, you know, into the conversation, we helped him out a little bit. He's still going to use the software, and, you know, yeah, he's a friend. So I've got invested interest in his success. So we're going to do things to help him. But in the end of it, man, like, he's not giving up, and I couldn't be more proud. And that's been the story of everything we've done. You know, Hurricane Harvey, I talked about a couple times, man, 7.5 feet of water in the house. Lost everything. I could have very easily given up. Never would have moved to Midland, never would have met my wife, never would have started this business with you, never would have got involved with Damage Prevention Council, which I support, and Project 214, helping out in the veteran organization. None of this would have happened had I just given up. So, you know, we just can't say it enough, man. You've got to be able to look adversity in the eye and say, you know, F off.
I can't tell you how many times I've fielded questions about, are you guys sure that the oil and gas industry is really the space that's going to receive this message on mental health? And while it's gotten a lot better than it ever used to be, there's still a lot of work to be done. But it's a hard road. It's a tough topic. The growth, the leadership aspect, doing internal work where this kind of topic stuff is not usually prioritized on the front pages of marketing and feeds and all the highlight reels, right? Some of the stuff that we do is running in the low light reel section, right? Deep reflection, inner work, that identity examination. If we listen to every opinion on it's not going to work, we would probably eventually believe it, and we would make that happen. It would not work. And I think for us, releasing the timeline of it has been a challenge that we've had to learn to work through. Obviously, we're extremely optimistic, positive, upbeat, putting in work every day. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight. And you just don't know how long it's going to take for these seeds that you planted to sprout and bear fruit. But that doesn't mean that you don't plant. And if you don't, then you're not going to have those opportunities. So sure, it's easy to get in front of a topic, a dream, a vision, and say, well, I gave it all I got for 60, 90 days and I wasn't successful yet, so I guess it just wasn't meant for me. But that's way too early in the process to give up when it takes people sometimes years to get to the other side of seeing their dreams and ambitions come to life. And I think that's why it's important. Like you mentioned the call the other day, one touch point of a different perspective from somebody who's not in the same mindset drastically changed his entire mood and his day, from spiraling to a place where he was ready to hang it up to a short conversation that brought him back around to seeing what he couldn't realize in the moment, which is he's early in the game. He needs to stick with it. He's far from being done by a long stretch. And that's where that community piece is so vital. When you get in that point, to reach out and have those conversations with other people that can help pull you back up, remind you that times are tough, things get hard, but you got to keep going. wake up to a fresh day, keep pouring back into it, and quitting is not an option. That's the easy way out.
Well, and the other side of that, right? In having that conversation with them, it was, man, I know you're trying to go all in on this, right? And you're trying to make this something where you can step away from your other business, that's your full-time job, and you're wanting this thing to grow and, gather its wings a whole lot faster than it really is, because it is a process, right? Especially when you're trying to tap into a market that you've got no experience in. And sure, your process and your services, they've got a lot of benefit in the industry he's trying to tap into, but he doesn't have that credibility yet. So being able to look at him and say, look, sorry, my watch is talking to me, but being able to look at it and say, hey, like, it's okay to trickle in for a little bit. It's okay to use the system, build your brand awareness, and when the time's right and you've got the clients coming in, take the leap. Make sure you've got the money to be able to afford the leap and sustain yourself. He was basically saying, man, I'm never going to have the time. I'm never going to have the energy. Work's picking up. We're having more contracts on the full-time job. I just don't see how I'm going to have the time to do all this. The problem with that is he's just not utilizing his time properly, right? He's not using the tools that he's got to his advantage to be able to actually make this happen and still have time to have dinner with his wife and his kids and be able to do stuff at the house.
Well, we go back to the timeline thing, right? It's easy, and even we went through the same thing, and there's still glimpses of it that come in. The expectation of leaving a full-time job and just being completely comfortable in the transition, where you just sidestep into your own path and you just take off to the races. It very rarely happens that way. And a lot of times in the pursuit of something new, where especially when you shift gears into entrepreneurship and you're doing things for yourself, it's a very uncomfortable process. And a part of that learning curve is showing you and testing you and asking you, do you really believe in what you say your mission is? Are you willing to give up the things that don't serve you anymore, even if that looks like downsizing your lifestyle or not being in a position to just casually keep moving in the game of life because you've gotten built into a custom level of security? It's a very challenging season of life to transition, and it takes a lot of time sometimes. Obviously, if you don't have a whole lot of time to contribute to it, it's just going to take longer to fill in the gaps when you do have time. You have to be okay with that. This is going to take as long as it's going to take. Obviously, I'd like to be in a position where I have my full-time energy and resources to devote to this. But if I'm not there yet, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it just because it's going to take longer. It's just going to take longer. And we started out first rough draft, vision, concept, all of that, not really having a whole lot of time to put into this because we were working full-time jobs. And we utilized the time when we had the ability and the energy to do so to get dialed in, and we've had some good opportunities to have much more time and energy to put into it, which helped us grow faster. But everybody's going to go through that season. And who's to say once you become successful, you're not going to hit a slow season and you still have to come back and pivot.
Oh, and I think it gets even worse when you get successful, right? And you and I talked about this the other day, where you get to a point in your life where everything is smooth sailing. You've got plenty of revenue coming in. Business is great. You've got the finances to do the things you love. You're traveling constantly, buying things that you want to buy. And then what happens? Things take a turn, right? What do you do at that point? Do you panic? Do you sell everything you own? Do you digress back into just a depressive state? Or do you truly latch onto it and say, man, I gotta make some change. I gotta do something different in order to be able to sustain the life. Now, yes, there's overextending yourself, right? We both have been in that point where you overextend everything you're doing. You're living on a high and you're doing everything you can to just continue a lifestyle, right? And we both had to step back and give up things. But we didn't give up who we are. We didn't give up the business. We didn't give up the things that matter, Materialistic things come and go. Maintaining a mindset for business and maintaining a mindset for your family is the only thing that truly you can hang on to no matter what. I could be living in a cardboard box with my wife and still be happy, man. It's obviously I'm trying not to get there, but it's one of those you just got to look at the priorities in life, and you got to look at what really, really matters to you, to your family, to your business partner, to everybody that truly cares about you, and just give it all you got.
Well, the conditioning on this industry, it's already tough to navigate, right? Because on upstream in the drilling side, it's extremely cyclical. You got your booms and your busts, right? And you go from living in a cardboard box to the Beverly Hillbillies, right? We struck it rich. We're doing well. We got the vehicles. We got the nice house. We're eating good every night of the week. And that starts to become comfort zone. Then the bottom falls out and you're back to eating Spam and bologna again. And that's just a part of the conditioning of the cycles of this type of industry, where it's feast and famine on a drastic spectrum change, and you never know when it's going to hit. So the only thing that you can really do is, like you said, put yourself in a position where you're happy either way. I like Spam and bologna just as much as I like Wagyu ribeye.
There's nothing like some Spam and pineapple cooked over some treated lumber in Iraq.
Corned beef hash with some scrambled eggs. I almost put that over any high-tier, expensive breakfast any day of the week.
What's our saying? Tastes like childhood.
Yeah, it takes you back to your roots, man. But you just got to be prepared to navigate who you are as a human being outside of the identity that's been built around what this character is that's playing this game that you're in, right? Oh, I'm not a successful executive today because all of my material things and my water tap of finances has been cut off for the time being. Who are you without all that stuff? Are you going to pick yourself up off the ground and rebuild it like you did the first time? If it completely went away and never came back, are you going to tell yourself that you can still find ways to be happy? Or without that identity, you're nothing? Because the reality is we can all live off of way less than what we consume.
And I'll even add to that, man. I think a lot of the problem with individuals is you sit there and go, all right, I got to build back what I had. It's an opportunity because you've got to a certain level. It's an opportunity to build back something different. And that's what you and I did, right? We both of us got into a downward slope for a bit, and all of a sudden what came out of it was a completely new business model, a completely new us, and what we were wanting to really passionately push. And being able to do that sometimes takes getting knocked off the bench a couple times, you know?
Well, we found several times to be true since we've started. There's two big differences in the operating modes. When we're operating out of alignment and we're not forcing things, we're allowing those right relationships and those right people to come into the fold, things flow. Every single time we try to force something, it starts to feel different. It doesn't feel like the same mission. We're trying to make this reality happen, and it's put us in a bad headspace. We've struggled with, why did we even start this? What are we even doing? And it's taken that pause to come back and say, wait a second, we didn't start this so that we could say we were successful with ABC, XYZ on paper. We started it because we believe in the mission behind the message and being of service to others and helping them. And that in turn helps us get to where we want to be with it. And that reframe, the tap turns back on and relationships start coming back around again. And you're like, man, when we were really just in this conditional force, it seemed like nothing was going our way. And when we kind of surrendered to trusting the process and getting back to having some fun with this and doing what we love doing, it started opening back up and we started making more progress again. And it's been a very valuable lesson in all things life of which mode operating out of affects the outcome, and being able to recognize when you get into one or the other. We appreciate you guys coming by for this one. It's something that's been on our mind, something we're navigating through, something that our friends and our clients are navigating as well. And it feels right to talk about this right now in the thick of it with other people who are in the thick of it, to step back and realize every single one of us as human beings is going through this, has gone through it, will go through it. So we just wanted to get these thoughts down and really like your feedback. If you have any thoughts or if you'd like to share some things you've learned on your journey that have been beneficial to you, we got a place in our community group called Highs and Lows, and something that we're going to strive for in that space is not just calling out the wins. It's great to get appreciation, it's great to get the praise, but we need to acknowledge the fact that there's lows just as much as there are highs. And usually the lows are when you need the most support. And everything's fine and dandy while everything's good and you're on the top side. And the money's flowing, jobs are coming, relationships are there. But what about when it's not? And we want to make sure we create a space where anybody and everybody can feel comfortable to talk about the reality of the low side too, and not just be there for things when things are working well, because it's going to ebb and flow.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys joining us on One Shot Growth. Follow us on LinkedIn. All the podcasts are on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. So I hope you follow, like, subscribe, share it with somebody else that needs the message. Now, we hope you'll join OSG Access. It's going to be a community for everybody. If you're trying to strive and you're a labor hand trying to get to the top and wanting to understand how to truly put yourself into that manager's mindset and learn something there, the group's for you. If you're an executive or you're a owner of a business and you're just looking to grow and expand your thought process, this group's for you. If you're a veteran transitioning out of service and looking for your next opportunity, join this community. Our goal is to help everybody. I get asked all the time, like, who's your target audience? It depends on what side of the business you're talking about. We have different things that we provide, and this community is meant to bring all of it together. The end game If I can help you, I can help you personally. I can help you as your business. That's what Derek and I want to do. So we hope you follow us, oneshotgrowth.com, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you being here with us on the One Shot Growth Podcast. If this episode hit for you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and keep the conversation going. And if you want to see what we're building, head over to oneshotgrowth.com. We're just getting started. See you on the next one.